Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Death Scenes and Cemeteries.
With the creepy voice. Hi, everybody. Evening.
How's everybody doing tonight? We at least have one person watching, so thank you, the one person that's
Woohoo!
watching. We greatly
Yay.
appreciate you. We really do. Um, Tonight is going to be a fun night. We've talked about this episode for like the last 3 weeks because we knew what it was. We did not tell anyone else on purpose. So, ha
Mm-hmm.
ha, ha ha, ha ha, you get to be surprised because I didn't even put it in the name of the episode. Um,
Yep. And
where
I
are
so
my
wanted
groups? There.
and I so wanted to post something, but then I'm like, oh, but they're gonna go and Google it, and I can't do that. So then I had to wait till today. And then that's
Right.
what I posted because I was like, oh.
And that's kind of why I was the way I was too. I was like, I'm not overdoing it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
pushing things any further than I have to because I want everybody to enjoy this topic as much as we do, even though it's dark and gloomy and death-like, and it's spooky season. Get over it. However, for us,
Exactly.
spooky season is every day of the year.
Yes, it is every day.
Oh,
Oh, that was great.
you're
Oh
welcome.
man.
I got to
Oh.
hang out with people that played killers in movies and stuff. Hi, mom. Um,
Hi.
all weekend. So that has been a fabulous time. Unfortunately, Miss Renee didn't get to join us. You know, her
Next
husband,
year.
you know, jacked his knee up and is probably going to have surgery. So next year, even if we had to take and drag him in on a sheet, we will make sure it happens. Um,
I actually have an idea for a costume, but that's okay in case if he's in a wheelchair. Got to do misery, right?
yeah,
So
running around with a sledgehammer on your shoulder.
why
He
not?
tried to escape.
Yeah, he tried. Sorry.
It's too late. You're stuck with me.
Yes, you're stuck with me. Oh gosh.
Uh, and unfortunately, Mr. Keith didn't get to join us this weekend. We understand it's a long freaking drive from Nebraska, but we love you, Keith. I know you'll be watching later. I'll be watching you. Oh, and and if anybody was on the Spirit Mechanics page or even on my page when I was going live, as you could tell, I was running around like an idiot trying to make sure everybody got to see as much of the convention as possible, even on Saturday, which was just absolutely nuts. I mean, I think we had at least 30,000, if not more, through the convention on Saturday alone. And both even Friday and Saturday were packed. I mean, lines going all the way around the freaking building on the outside. They were pulling in children and they were pulling in people in wheelchairs and stuff. The others had to sit outside and wait until it was their turn to get inside.
Yeah.
Um, so we
Well.
we were slammed at the Spirit Mechanics table. We were going live as much as we could for everybody. You know, we did the black carpet live for everybody, so everybody could see what was happening with that.
Hmm.
If you missed it, it was great. You know, we had one of the other actors who played Jason Voorhees throwing crap toward Kane Hodder, and that was just funny. Because I don't even know if Kane was there yet, but that was just funny. Richard Brake was there. Speak of the
Think.
devil, what's up,
Yep.
good
Short
looking
Jesus.
short
Short
Jesus?
Jesus.
We have short Jesus in the house, everybody. Thank you
Hmm.
for sharing us out and for your continued support. Now, on to the weather.
Oh, Keith could play a Manson. Well, then again, Keith did in 1 in 6 million. He
He
did
sure
not
did.
so much a Manson, but a kind of serial killer type. It was a really good short film.
I mean, speaking of serial killers, one of the film fests movies that was there was a movie called Serial, and it actually featured two different serial killers in the same film in the same area, and it was phenomenal. I actually got to hang out with the cast and crew. We had a lot of fun. They were at the VIP party as well. We had Richard Brake running around flipping people off, which was awesome. If you don't know who Richard Brake was, he played the Winter King in Game of Thrones, and he also played in a lot of the Rob Zombie movies, including 31, which was just phenomenal. Um, that was actually one of the better Rob Zombie films, I think. It was just so much fun the way they did it, and his character
Mm.
is the absolute best. Um, um, Sean Whalen was there. Sean actually commented on my costume yesterday. He loved it, which was cool. He was out there dancing with us at the VIP party. I mean, like, straight up getting down. Jamie
Well,
Kennedy was out there dancing. Scout Taylor Compton was out there dancing. It was a full-on actual party this year, and it was so great to be back at the Manchester. Um,
it's good.
I have a fun story told by RA that I have on video. I'm not gonna be showing that, but, yep, RA Miloff, if you don't know who that is, he played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3,
Yes. Hmm.
and he is just a fun, genuine, down-to-earth human being, and he is just such a great person. He really is. The size and the character freaks people out, but he's just such a good person.
He is.
We had Steven Tango from Ghost Hunters hanging out. Dustin Perry was hanging out. We had a guy that drove down from Pittsburgh that was in Ghost Hunters Academy. He just showed up to hang out,
That's
and
cool.
his name is Brett. He's really awesome. I got to hang out and talk to him for quite a while. Dave Schrader was hanging out with everybody. You know, it was a good weekend, and I probably consumed way too much alcohol, but that's a whole different story.
But that's
uh,
good.
yeah,
It was a wild and crazy time. Well, with the lineup that they had, how could it not have been?
yeah. I mean,
So,
Matthew, Skeet, and Jamie Kennedy, all three still had people in lines, even on Sunday evening, all the way up until way past they closed, and they were still there signing autographs for people, even up to the point that Matthew had to leave to take and go do his whiskey tasting he did last night.
hmm.
So, just that dedication to the fans and stuff, it just proves how great they really are.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely. They love their fans, and their fans love them. So,
absolutely. I didn't actually get to meet them in person because we were just so busy. They had lines going down hallways and wrapping around. It was insane. Um, but yeah, just awesome people. All the celebrities that were there were just phenomenal. The staff worked their behinds off, like almost dehydration point, and they still try to take care of everybody as much as possible. And for anyone who doesn't know, right, it's mandatory at Scarefest.
yes,
Um, the staff at Scarefest are volunteers. They don't get paid. They pay for everything themselves, and they still work their butts off for everybody. So that being said, Miss Renee, what are we
yeah.
talking about tonight?
Who are we talking about? We're talking about Charlie Manson, Mr. Charlie Manson himself.
The great short mouth himself.
um, as I was looking up some of his stuff, I mean, you can start to see the trend with the bigger guys, meaning the more popular ones, meaning of like Gacy and Ed Gein and Bundy, that we have a lot of issues, a lot of family issues going on. With Charlie, I mean, right out the gate, I do feel a little sympathetic sometimes for him, a lot. Um, well,
All hail the cat herders. That's
Herders.
right, Keith. All hail the cat
Yep.
herders.
I mean, right out the gate, I mean, his mother didn't name him. Right out the gate, his birth certificate says no name Maddox. Right out the gate, this poor guy. Um, Mom was 15 years old, was a party girl, liked to run away. Um, his dad, who there's a lot of speculation on who his dad is, this, that, and the third. But there was an actual paternity judgment in 1937. So Colonel Walker Henderson Scott was his father. Um, so, and his father had a reputation of being a con artist himself because he wasn't an actual colonel. Because Mom thought, oh, he disappeared after Charlie was born, thinking that he was gonna, oh, he must be in the army because he's a colonel. No, he was like a local miner in the town. So, um, his mother, she ends up, so his birth name is Maddox. He gets adopted by his mother, gets married in 34 and gets Eugene Manson. They didn't stay together very long. I thought they did, but they didn't stay together very long because Mom liked to go out partying with her brother and leave the baby at home. So now do we see, like, do we have a lot of similarities with a lot of things? Mommies don't want them or dads don't want them. And that does that spark something? Possible.
I mean, there is a lot to play in that situation, especially with several of them. I, if I remember correctly, even Bundy was proven to be, well, he was not wanted by his family at all.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, as far as I remember, there were rumors that he was actually inbred. So,
Yes. Yes. So I mean, he in 39 he was he's off and on with his mother. So in August of 1939 his mother is arrested for robbery and she gets like 5 years of imprisonment. He gets shipped now to West Virginia to go live with his aunt and his uncle,
who did not want him either. So,
who did not want. So he's gone from house to house, people to people. The man that gives him his name, that even after they get divorced, Eugene allows him and allows the mother to keep Manson as his name. Um, so his aunt and uncle didn't want nothing, which I thought was this, because this quote that Manson always talked about at 1942, his mother's finally paroled from jail, and Manson always would say that was the happiest day in his life is when his mother came home. Um, his he likes to say his first crime happened when he was 9 years old, that he burned his school down.
I mean, he
And,
also spent, the better part of the first half of his life in institutions,
mm-hmm,
incarcerated,
yep,
Um, if I remember correctly, he even did a stint at West Virginia State Penitentiary in
yep.
Meadowsville.
He
So,
was. I mean, he went to, I said, Boys Town in Omaha, Nebraska. He right from there he went to Panora, Illinois, where that's the boys, like the boys' school. That's where I think, because so much happened to him. He was essayed there and by inmates, and it was basically given permission from the faculty for them to do this to him.
yeah.
Which is, if you look at his younger life, you do feel really sorry for him. And I mean, he did his first marriage. He tried to play it straight. He tried, but robberies and felonies and check laundering and all of this, you know, crime that he committed, and then you fast forward and you go, how, he turns to this monster that everybody says that he turned into. Um, I do know, which I was thought was so finally he ends up, so and not only that, like he's in Kentucky, he's in Omaha, Nebraska, he's stealing cars, driving across country to California, which that's back then was a federal crime. So here we have a felony for stealing cars on his record. Um, he runs away 18 times from all these, either these schools or places that he was at. He's in Washington D.C. at the National Training School for Boys. Finally, somebody goes, you know what? Let's give this boy an IQ test. For somebody who was illiterate, that boy had 109. This was 1951, so who knows what that would translate to today. But he was 109
Yeah.
IQ. He's a very
I
smart
mean,
man.
even the tests from the 80s have changed to the point to where a high score then would be considered even higher now. So,
Mm-hmm.
because they have changed the testing methods and how they rate things.
Yep.
So,
It's amazing. It's just like like I said, I have here in my notes, like petty larceny, armed robbery, burglary, auto theft. That's just, I tend to think, like, especially when he did say somewhere, and this was right before um the the family was started. He basically told them, hey, keep me in here. I'm not going to be any good. Keep me in here. This is home. He spent more than, he gets, what does he finally gets out? March 21st, 1967. He's
yes.
already spent half of his 32 years of his life either in prison or in an institution, which is sad.
In which, 1967 is also when he started to build his own family and they
Mm-hmm.
relocated to the Spawn Ranch
Yes.
in Los Angeles County. So, hello, Jonathan Myers. Thank you for joining, sir. And of
You know,
course, Victor Santiago was in there in the crowd, and I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Um, to everyone watching, we greatly appreciate all of you. We really do.
yes. It's like Raymond said, in '67 he's paroled and he moves to Berkeley. So he's out, moves to Berkeley, and he's in the Height and the Ashbury area, and which I thought was, because here goes that theory of a lot of people saying that he was also a CIA operative. He was all this because, which there are a lot of urban legends surrounding this man. There is, because the free clinic that the whole family that they would go to actually was part of a CIA LSD program of how to using drugs to how it manipulates your brain. And his family was going to this, you know. And then the other thing that I thought always was with him, well, talk about an urban legend. I mean, the urban legend is that because Manson was a very musical man, he was.
Yeah,
Um, he played guitar. He learned while being incarcerated. Um,
he
they always
wrote
say
his
that
own music and stuff.
they
I
always say
think,
that in late '65 he tried out for the Monkees. Well, he couldn't be trying out for the Monkees in '65 because he was in McNeil Island in '65. That was
yeah,
in
he was
Washington
in
State.
prison. So,
So you can't be there in two places.
he actually did befriend some of the Beach Boys though, and
Mm-hmm.
actually helped them write a song. So one of their songs that they have released was actually partly his.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he he made an effort at it. He really did. He
He,
really wanted to be a musician. He always did.
yes, he always did. actually to the point where at some point um, in 2010, he actually recorded with Henry Rollins in 2010. There's 5 copies that exist. 2 Henry Rollins has. Manson had the other 3.
Yep.
So, I mean, he was a very musical man. That's all he wanted to do. I really think is, he really just wanted to play music and be happy and life and he had other, influences on him, he the book that he I would consider him to read as Doctrine, which was Stranger in a Strange Land, which was a science fiction book of all things. You know, um, Manson, he took that book, he took the Bible. He was a Scientologist, people. He had 150 hours of being audited at Scientology. And we all know Scientology. That's a whole different story. And then Dale Carnegie was a main, he was an author of this book, which I thought this was a really big influence, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Which is a really good, you know what I mean? It's just so with all that, and he knew how to target people. He knew by reading these books and just being I could see him in prison being around other inmates and just learning and absorbing because he was a sponge. Think about this. If
Yeah.
he knew how to
He
twist
he
all
he
this
literally
in.
watched the other groups and stuff and saw how they interacted and how they drew in new people, and he used that to create his own group of people once he left.
Hmm. Exactly.
The family even more for him was just that, a family, because
Hmm.
that was something he never really had.
Never had.
So
You know.
it just took a very sharp turn for the worse, in 1969.
Yep. 1969. And part of it, I really think part of it is that he starts. You know, he's in that Hashberry Free Medical Clinic, partaking in a study for the
Yeah,
LSD, and and it just takes a serious hard left, and then we're off down. The reign of the Labanca murders and Sharon Tate and everyone
her
else.
friends. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know.
And getting into the Tate murders, you know, they actually killed someone before that,
Mm-hmm.
and that was Bernard Crowe. You know, they say it was Manson with Watson and T.J. Wellerman. Um, you know, Tex was into drug dealing, and Bernard was another drug dealer that
Mm-hmm.
he robbed. So, in the
Yep.
process, they shot and killed him.
Sure did. And you know, it's and that's like that's why I always said there's the mystique of Manson, because there's other people that they try to in that time period saying, oh, Manson was because of music rights and this and that and turf wars, and he would they were trying to tie him to almost, I want to say, like almost anything that was similar in MO,
Yeah,
just to make sure they
because
could
even
get the
at that
case
time
off.
and stuff, they had serial killers and stuff, but they still did not have the
Hmm.
profiling system that they have now, because that program didn't even start until the 70s.
Yep.
That was developed in the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
So, trying to find any way to tie him to make sense of what was happening. And even like the Tate murders and stuff, they had actually been around these people because they had been invited to parties and stuff in LA where these people were present.
I
So,
mean,
at
they
that point, it's like, why focus on them? Was it just the location and it made it easier to take and break in and get away with it? Or, you know, they were trying to words. I'm tired, y'all. It's been a weekend. They were trying to make a statement and send a message, even if it wasn't exactly the message that people thought they were trying to send.
yes.
You know, everybody was convinced that it was a race war and stuff. And honestly, it just based on these people weren't, picked randomly. We were going after some of these big names,
Hmm.
people that's going to get attention.
I mean, at the time, Roman Polanski was like the guy, the filmmaker. Like he was the guy, And then you had Abigail Folger, who, like her last name states, was the heiress to the Folger Company of coffee company.
Yeah. And Shannon Tate was one of
You
the
know.
biggest actresses at that time.
Yes. Yes. And
So,
what? Go
let's go
ahead.
big or go home. We're
Exactly.
trying to make a statement. So we're going after these people.
Mm-hmm. And I found this was a coincidence of something that I didn't even know. Quincy Jones was supposed to be there that night. Quincy Jones, who's a big time music producer, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
His best friend is Jay Seaspring, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you come over to the night?" And at the last minute, he changed his mind. He didn't feel good, or he was tired, or whatever, and didn't go. I mean, Quincy Jones was supposed to be in that house,
Yeah.
so
Which seemed to work out for him. But anyway,
yes.
I get to breathe for another day. Oh, my
Yes.
friends are dead. That sucks. Anyway, new artist. Cool. Let's go. Um, joke. Total joke. Yeah.
Total joke.
I
It's
forgot my ticker. That's on me. That's on me. I forgot my ticker. Here we go. There's the ticker. Welcome, Death
yeah.
Scenes and Cemeteries.
This show is rated 18 plus for adult language and content. So
It sure is.
it sure is.
So on to the bloody facts. Take that as you will, because that is a straight up pun. You know,
Mm-hmm.
bloody is considered a curse word in the UK, but also, there's blood everywhere. They even wrote
There was.
pig and Shantate's blood on the refrigerator, just to make a point. What that point was, it's hard to say. There was a lot of drugs consumed. Um,
A lot of drugs consumed. Manson loved that White Album. That was also we're also in that time period. 1960s. We're in that time period. Why
let's go
not?
Beatles. Um,
The Beatles, and just not only that, but you're in that time period of there's a lot of hate crimes and such going around. So why not
and
try
also
and
just the pure chaos that was the Vietnam War.
yep.
There's a lot more that probably ties into this that people even realize that
Mm-hmm.
Mason would probably even discuss. And work is trying to call me, and they can go to voicemail. I'm not hating. I just know what they want, and it's not going to happen right now. Um, so I'll call them back afterward. Oh, by the way, I did remember my charger this time, so my laptop will not die because we are already half an hour in, and we haven't even got to our second subject of the evening, which is fine
Exactly.
because there's so much to unfold here. There really is.
There really is. Manson is one of those that you can. there's the different parts of his life that you can just look at and you can see where he is in this time period and go, you have the gamut of emotion for him. Like I said, like I always just took that crazy cult leader spouting, words of go do this, go do that, do this for me, do this for me, do this for me. As I was a 8, 9, 10 year old when I started looking at things, and I mean especially that 1973 Manson movie. I mean, which is if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I got Vincent Buglieri's book. I think I was like 10. My mother had like, the books that you'd come, the book club that you could get for the month. And I was like, Mom, can I get this book? And it's about Manson and that whole time period. So, it started young for me, like, you know what I mean? So it just, he's such a different character. We'll put it that way. Like he wears so many masks. His brain is in any direction that he could go. And then you sit there and you go with how smart he is, and then you see the books that he's reading and the people that he's into and where he's going and getting these information. How could he not turn around and just say, go do? And these other people say, yes, no
Okay.
problem. Okay. Without any hesitation, with nothing, just go and do. So,
And they
um,
literally went. And
and they did. I mean, when he was during the trial, I mean, he had family members outside. If he shaved his head, they shaved his head. They carved things into their forehead. He did. They did. They literally he was the Messiah for them in that time period.
because if you can't have a family of love, you might as well have a family of people that will follow your every move.
Exactly.
And since he never understood love because, it was never an experience he had,
Mm-hmm.
let's just create a family however possible.
Mm-hmm. True. True. True.
And
That's.
oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, you go. Go.
Okay. And even before they even made it into the house, they had somebody visiting the caretaker. He was coming out. Tex Watson stopped him and shot him where he was in the car, and they
Mm-hmm.
left him right there to go into the house. One of the gentlemen tried to escape out the back door. They shot him in the backyard and left him laying. Sebring and Tate they had tied up and shot and stabbed both of them multiple times. Folger was stabbed and shot multiple times. You know, it it looks personal because
Yep. Definitely.
crimes of passion and stuff usually lead to that many stabs and shots. Hi, Susan. Welcome to the party. Um, thank you so much for sharing out. We're discussing, the murders of the Manson family. But, they literally had Sebring and Tate tied with rope dangling
Mhm.
from the ceiling with it pulled to where they could not even stand correctly. It was
Exactly.
like basically tippy toed.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to
Just
hang here until we're ready to get to you.
just enough that like okay here, we're not done with you yet. We're just gonna tease, but just enough.
You get to watch your friends die first.
Yep.
And that's honestly another reason why I'm like it feels more personal than anything.
Mm-hmm.
These people were not picked at random.
Oh god.
So
Oh
it's
no.
hard to say what happened at these parties leading up to the moment. But I have thank you, Tyree. I have a feeling that, there was more going on than what was led on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what one article I read that they had been there. A few of them had been there beforehand at parties, and Roman Pulaski had even said, when he had seen the pictures of the people that were arrested, he goes, he was at my house 3 weeks before.
Yeah,
Like, I know him, so you just with the amount of destruction and how clinical, fast, and deliberate that all of them worked as like a team, like, because what are they? They're a family, and how
yeah.
deliberate they are is and that just
They
tear.
worked almost like an assassination unit. They really did,
Yeah, yeah.
without the cleanup, because they wanted the bodies found.
Hmm. They wanted that shock and awe value. They wanted that front page of that newspaper.
They sure did.
Yeah, they sure did.
And so while everybody's worried about that situation, the very next night they go and murder Leno and Rosemary Bianca, La Bianca.
Hmm. Yep.
You know, Bianca was a large executive in the city. Obviously he had a lot of ties and this and that. And that's what once again, I don't think these people were chosen at random. There was something that happened. There was a beef created, and it's
Hmm.
like, okay, we're gonna make them pay, and so they did. You know, they bound Rosemary. They stabbed Leno in the living room with a bayonet.
Hmm. Carved war into his abdomen.
Yep, and there was "Rise and Death to Pigs" written on the walls, and "Helter Skelter" on the refrigerator. All this was done in blood.
Hmm.
That, and honestly, it was once again, it was more like a crime of anger and passion than anything because of the amount of stabbings that were involved.
Hmm.
It wasn't just once or twice, okay, they're dying and they're dead.
I mean, not only that, just the binding
It was, we're
of
going to keep
sitting in
going
a
until we
chair,
stop.
and a wife is seeing them carve war into their her husband's abdomen while he's alive. There's but I mean, that the one thing that I did find about the LaBanca murders is that the Manson, and here we're talking about, like, how is there a connection? They've recently found out that Manson and the family members attended a party next door a year before.
Yeah,
They had something, a year before. So is this something that was in his mind for like a whole year?
there was a purpose.
Mhm.
Why is my signal want to cut out? It should not be cutting out. Um, my laptop hates me. It's a love-hate relationship. I love it most of the time. It hates me always.
I mean, and one thing that I will always say that I look at it as, I try to sometimes look at it from Tex Watson's point of view, or you know you know any of them, and going, okay, well, I'm doing this for him, and he's making me walk home. Like, they hitchhiked home. They, from these murders, they just hitchhiked home out on the road, and and
Well,
just.
I think that was part of it. It was honestly, let's create an alibi. If the vehicle's not there, there's nobody to take and trace the vehicle back to us.
Yep.
You know, we're going to take it and find a different route home, even if that's walking and hitchhiking back.
Hmm.
That way, it's an even number of people. That way, if they need to create an alibi, the people are there. Oh no, they were with us all night.
Yep.
I still think everything was thought through, everything was methodical, even to the point that they tried to make it as chaotic as possible.
Mm-hmm. I definitely I agree. I mean, I know he wasn't too happy with how had things had gone the night before because it was like so panic and some almost got away and there was loud noise and I know he wasn't happy. I know he wasn't happy with that, with
Yeah.
Van Houten and
It honestly drew more attention than they really wanted,
Mhm.
and that's why with the LaBianca murders and stuff, nobody was shot there. They
No.
were both stabbed.
Yep.
We're keeping this quiet tonight.
Hmm. I mean, especially with what wasn't what wasn't one of them. I'm trying to remember. One of them stabbed with. I want to say it's like a carving fork. Was it the wife or was it the husband? I can't remember. It
I
was one of
don't
them.
remember. I know they used the bayonet on both of them to start off with, and
Hmm.
I can't remember what all was used after that.
Yeah, I think that's the one where there was a carving fork. Like they just were in the kitchen looking, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna take like the carving fork that you'd use on Thanksgiving and just go to town because it wasn't meant to be loud. It was meant to be quiet. Because opposed to, Sharon Tate, I mean, she had neighbors, but the following night you had neighbors that were next door that you could have. It was in suburbia where you just could look out the door and say, go next door and say, hey, can I get a cup of sugar? I mean, that's how close your neighbors were.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, And of course, at this point, Manson has passed away from
hmm.
cancer or complications due to cancer. There are actually two former members that were involved that have been paroled,
Yes.
which is very interesting to me. So, and the fact
And
that
I'm trying to remember who it was. It was just recently. Was not. It wasn't Watts, was it? No, because Watson's. Who's
because
it
there
was
was
somebody.
one in the 20 teens, and then there's one that was within like the last couple of years.
Yeah, and then somebody else came up, and Newsom said, "Absolutely not,
Yeah.
absolutely not," and so that they're not leaving.
Nope. Stick them back in the hole.
Exactly. But I mean, he did, in his stint. He did a lot of famous interviews, which everybody clips them for everywhere. He
Yep.
did the Tom Snyder one, which was, that was like 1981. That was like the first one. He did the Charlie Rose interview for the CBS. That was in '87. Of course, the ultimate fame, like the one I remember the most, is the Geraldo Rivera one.
He
You know.
also was a part of the profiling organization.
Yep.
They interviewed him whenever they were setting up the profiling program for
Yep.
the BSU. So there was that because when they were in California and they would go see Kemper, they actually took a stint out to see Charles Manson as well.
Mhm. Yep. Because why not? To get every which way that these individuals, how their brains, how they function, what was their trigger, what was their why, their need, their want, their desire for whatever it was that they needed to do.
And that was the one good thing about the whole, profiling system. It was based on social behavior,
Mm-hmm.
not, psychology.
Yep.
What behaviors are manifested before Manson? Um,
He was supposed to. They pulled a marriage certificate, but they never did. But he was married twice beforehand.
Yeah. When you look at social behaviors and social tics and how they respond to everyday life and what
Mm-hmm.
common personality traits amongst that they all had and behavioral traits they all have, it made a very efficient system to where they have it down to just about an art now.
Yep.
And a lot of it is because of the serial killers and, people like Charles Manson that they interviewed. I know
Yep.
Kemper gave them all kinds of information. He was like, "This is how I did it. This is how I fooled everybody. This is
Yep.
why."
This is why I did it.
Like, he full on broke it down to almost every second of his life
Mm-hmm.
leading up to being captured,
Mm-hmm.
which he actually turned
Yep.
himself in. That'll be a conversation for
Yeah, he
another
did.
day. That's gonna be fun. Um, Edmund
Yeah,
is
yeah.
actually
Because
a favorite
I just love him.
because he
I
did
just love
all
him.
those heinous acts. And then he turns around and starts the reading program for audiobooks for the blind while
Yep.
institutionalized. He taught people to read that were in the institution to help him
Yep.
read these
Help
books. So,
helped others get their GEDs. Help
yeah,
them with their parole papers. Help them with legal, legal, any kind of legal stuff that was going on in there. They all knew to go to Kemper because
yeah.
his brain was just he was just a smart man. I call him the gentle giant that just flipped the switch.
I mean, like I said, we'll get into him another day, because there's a lot to unpack there too.
Yeah.
Holy God!
Yes, there is.
But we actually do have a whole other subject since we've been talking about Charles Manson and the Manson family for the last 48 minutes now.
Yeah.
Um, because we like to do tandem things, and that involves, if we're going to talk about people that want to murder people, we're going to go into death scenes and stuff in film.
Bye. I'll be on.
Yes, sir.
I'll be on shortly whenever we get done.
Yep. Once we get done, we'll have it
Yeah.
shared out, sir. Thank you
Yes.
for stopping in and hanging out. Um, and I chose this movie specifically because, like the Manson family, in the way I perceive it, which I might add that it's all my perception as to how everything played out and how everything looked and the way they
Mm-hmm.
did things. Everything was intentional, everything had a purpose and a reason. And it wasn't
Yep.
exactly what they gave people, that's just what they want to tell people for the whole shock and awe. Um, but this movie, I enjoy it so much because it was shot in such a short time. If I remember correctly, is shot in with like a month. And just
About.
the
Yep.
twists and turns throughout the film and the very, very last freaking scene still gets me to this
Just
day.
is
It's just phenomenal.
exactly. You're just like, what? What? You know.
Yeah. And this movie has spawned several, sequels, but none of them have really touched the genius of the
Mm,
original film. And that is
no.
the movie Saw.
Yes.
You know, like I said, there's several sequels to the original
Mm-hmm.
Saw film. I think we're up to like 11 or 12 movies now total, including the original. But
I don't know. As it grows on, they go on, it just it doesn't capture
at
that
this
whole
point, they
even the
go
way that
more
it's
for
shot.
gore and stuff compared to the
Mhm.
actual nature of the story. Because if
Exactly.
you have not
And the
seen the
people,
original
the
Saw yet,
reason what?
then shame on you. You know,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you
the
haven't,
spoiler
then
alert ahead.
shame on shame on you, which is the truth. You know, because It was more, did you have, you know, gore in Saw? Yes, you did, but you had background characters of the characters. You had their stories, the reason why he picked them, what they did, and as they go on, it just turns into, oh well, how can we come up with something that'll just maim and murder someone,
Because this
and
movie was just as much of a psychological thriller as it was an actual, slasher film slash horror movie slash because the thought process through everything and the twists and turns that went
mhm,
throughout the entire movie, most of them you never see coming until the very end, and you're like,
exactly.
okay, okay. Um, the actors and actresses in this movie were phenomenal,
Hmm.
and I give it to Tobin Bell for playing a dead guy for as long as he did. And what people don't realize is even in the beginning of the film and stuff, he was right there the whole time.
He's
Not
right
just
there the
laying on the
whole.
ground right there, but he was the patient in the bed.
Mhm.
That's where it all started. He was the patient in the bed that they were, laughing and joking around about how there wasn't really anything they could do for him. And it was the little PA that came through that was like, oh, his name's John. You know, he took it very personally for him because, he
Mhm.
probably sat there and talked to him and this and that and tried to get to
Mhm.
know him. Whereas the doctors are like, well, we're only here to diagnose and I'm here to teach these medical students right now.
Yep. I mean, my
And
my. Go ahead.
oh
Go
no,
ahead.
have at it,
I
dear.
mean, my like one of the things that I like about this movie oh so well, and that's like we'll swing it back to Psycho, is the way that it's shot. I mean, they
Yeah.
used newspaper articles, they used surveillance cameras, they used still photography, just the way that it was shot. And to find out, we have Saw. Saw is what gave inspiration to Seven. I
There's
went when
something
I
about
read that
Crystal did 7
article,
coming.
and I was like,
I don't remember.
so
I'm doing research, so continue
yeah,
talking.
okay. And then in about that time period, I was trying to look and see, like, inspiration. Was there any copycat anything? Because I mean, it's a very good movie where if somebody was a little unhinged or wanted to have some notoriety because this film was so of a big box office, you know, uh, buster
I
during
mean,
that
they
time
had a
period.
budget of like $2.1 million in 2004 when they
I mean,
shot
they
this.
were they were number three. I think Ray was number one, and that was the Ray Charles movie. And I forget who two was, but they were the top three. I mean, those were really, they were in the top three.
Yeah. And
Um,
actually, 7 came out in 95, so 7 may have been the influence for Saw. But
oh, okay. You know, um, but I was thinking of people that would use devices to, you know, murder someone. I came right back to the. I don't know if you remember the pizza bomber.
yeah,
I mean, that's something like I was like, oh my god, that's like right out of the movie. Which is, it's the same thing. He had to go do a scavenger hunt and couldn't get to it. And what happened? Well, we know what happened.
yeah.
Like it's so.
And the great thing about this whole scheme was he was trying to show people how to appreciate their life.
Mm-hmm.
The one victim that had gotten away, that saved herself in the movie, that was actually examined by the doctor, talked to by the detectives. She was an addict, and his whole purpose was to take and show her that her life was worth much more than just drugs. He wanted
Hmm.
her to appreciate her life because his was ending, and there was nothing anybody could do.
Yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
was
and
the same for the doctor. He wanted him to appreciate what he had at home with his
hmm
family and show you know, the photographer that he was worth more than what he has given himself credit for.
agreed. Absolutely agreed. This. I mean, this movie also too is a Guinness Book record holder for the most successful horror movie series.
Yeah.
You slap Saw onto it, and because you
People
just
flock.
so have ingrained that first Saw, and you're just like, how can they top it? How could they? And like you had stated, and I like, they got away from what it was really meant to be about. A psychological thriller that made you go, anybody could have done this.
Yeah.
Anybody, your person next door, you walk by the street. I mean, anybody could have done this. Just you just needed that push, and that push was, what was he? He had a name, but all the doctors did was see his bracelet and see the number, not the name.
All they saw was a diagnosis. They did not see
Mm-hmm.
a person.
Yep.
And I still love the fact that, the one who's like his name is John was actually put in the situation that he was. He is like because it was part of the rules. So he
Mm-hmm.
had been part of the game from the beginning. Even after he died, he was part of the game from the beginning. And that's how he wound up in the situation he was in.
Yep.
Um, and then just the ending. I'm going to ruin it for people. If you haven't watched it, shame on
You
you.
haven't seen it by
Um,
now. You really, shame on you is right.
because Carriolis plays in this movie. He plays the doctor. He literally cuts his own ankle off to take and try to go save his family, and goes to find help for the other guy who they've learned to appreciate each other despite everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he crawls out of the room because he's cut his foot off. He's bleeding to death. Face is turning white. His lips are blue. He's bleeding to death.
Yep.
And after he is out of the room, Tobin Bell gets up from the floor after laying there for days,
Yep.
pretending to be dead, walks over to the door and says, "Game over," and slams it shut. Phenomenal ending. The
Yep.
whole time the killer was right there in the room and they thought he was dead. He is
Mm-hmm.
sitting there holding that button. Every time they tried to do something, he shocked them. And he laid there pretending to be dead. Phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. It is. I mean, not only that, the director, which is James Wan, this is his directorial debut.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, his people didn't even know they shot multiple endings, so nobody knew until the
Which
final
ending they were
product.
going to go with until he released the final cut.
Yep. So it makes you think what was on the floor too.
It makes me wonder how many other endings he has.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if I was him, I would just randomly re-release it with a different ending and not tell anybody that the other endings on it,
Agreed.
because that would just make it so much more fun, and people would be shocked and awed all over again by the
Mm-hmm.
original because it has a completely different ending. They're like, I don't recognize this, and it throws them off, and they have to rewatch the first.
Yep. Exactly. I agree.
Oh,
Absolutely agree.
Lord. Hey, we made it to an hour. Woo! Um,
Woohoo!
My laptop didn't die. We're doing awesome.
That's
Okay,
what's
we're going.
happening. That's good.
Oh, Lord
I
have
mean,
mercy.
I will say through that whole movie, there is one trap that's an actual trap that was actually used in medieval times. Was it's called in the movie it was called the reverse bear trap, but in medieval times it was called the. I just love the name, the Pears of Anguish. Just love the name.
That's great. Well, also there was the dude trapped in the wire, which was just fun.
Yeah.
That felt very Dario Argento as far as the
Mm-hmm.
way he shot it and stuff, because of the piano wire scene
Yep.
where she's trying to escape through the piano wire to get away from the killer, and then winds up with her throat slit. Um,
Mm.
and if anybody remembers episode one, that was my movie, was Suspiria by Dario Argento. Dario Argento. Let me enunciate, because for the love of God, yeah,
It's been a thing, and
it's
words are a
been a
thing.
thing. It's been a weekend. It was a
Yeah.
phenomenal weekend, but it's been a weekend. You know, we we finished up helping out the Scarefest crew to take and get everything out at a decent hour. We went until after 8 o'clock, and I was like, I'm driving home.
Mm.
I love you all, but I'm leaving. I'm going, and I left.
Yeah.
They're like, we get it, dude. Do it.
Exactly.
Um, so with that, do we want to surprise them with next week's, or should we let the cat out of the bag? I mean, I honestly like the shock and awe of saying, "Hey, this is what we're talking about," because we
I do
actually
too.
already know what we're
I
talking about
like
next
them
week.
too. I say we don't. I say I like giving it like a little tease in the middle of the week.
Yeah, we can do
You
that.
know,
We can do
you get a
that.
little tease at the and then a little something, and then as we get there.
Especially with the topics for next week, because it's going to be so fascinating. And with the individual we're discussing and stuff, we may throw another one in there because it's slightly relatable,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll see how it goes. Um, Other than that, do you have anything to say, Renee?
No, just everybody have a good night. Have fun, spooky the rest of the spooky season, and have a safe Halloween too.
Absolutely. And please go, you know, like our page over at Raven Hollow
Oh yes.
Productions, like the YouTube, like the Facebook. We're even on TikTok, so I'll be adding clips throughout the week to that. Um, I may just send them to her and say, "Here, have fun," but you can do it. I have faith in you. I want to go take a nap now. Have fun. No, when are you waking up? Monday. Um, we all
or
know I don't sleep that much, so that's
when
your
are, when are
joke.
you but more like when are you rolling out of your crypt is what you should say.
I don't have a crypt. I have a den. There's a difference.
Well, yeah, well, yes, there's a difference, but
Like dark room, blankets on one side, pillows here, and other blankets on top of me. It's
mm-mm.
it's I
Thank you,
made a
Della.
nest in
Thank
a
you.
den. Um, uh, it's slap happiness. It really is. I don't know how I can talk about these things and not and still be slap happy. But hey, it happens.
It
Uh,
happens.
as what you get for hanging out with actors who play killers telling moonshine stories. Um,
Yes, and like I said, what he said is true about East Coast girls.
it
It's not
sure
this
is.
one. Not
It
just this one.
sure
Not this
is. Eventually, I might share that out. You never know.
one.
It
Mm-hmm.
might wind up on TikTok, but it was such a funny story from
Oh
a
yeah,
funny guy. Um,
definitely. You, that's the thing. You never know what's going to come out of their mouths. Never know.
Well, people are people, and people have
Mhm,
lives and sense of humors too. So, that's always the great thing. I just like to say hi and hang out with them and just chill, you know,
mhm,
talk about shit, see what they've got coming up that they can talk about, how life is going in general,
mhm.
because it's always a roller coaster ride for everybody.
Yes.
And right now I think I'm on the downward slope, flying about 85 miles an hour on something that would probably kill me if I was actually on it, because I'm not allowed to ride roller coasters. Hooray! Um, ask me how many times I've been to Kings Island. Never.
Oh. And
Um,
and this is all natural, folks. This is not like anything extra added into this. Not at
no,
all. Nope,
this is
nothing.
just me rattling my mouth because I'm
Yes.
tired, and if I stop, I'm going to pass out. Um, even though we've already shot over an hour at this point. This is what people had to deal with all weekend, including yesterday when I was wearing my costume for Scarefest for Kids Day. If you want a visual, here it is. Imagine Ace Ventura Asylum scene with the pink
Mm,
tutu. That was me being a problem for everybody, jumping around, screaming, "I'm open," looking for football. That was not there. Pirouetting like a ballerina. I told somebody I looked like, a prom date whose prom date, stood them up at one point. Um, I looked like somebody who's been stood up for a prom. That's what it was. Um,
oh,
and
um,
still taking the time to make jokes about just giving people the dead eye stare, making them question whether I was actually going to let them walk out of the building alive or not. So there was a lot to unpack.
yes, there. Yes, sounds like it was.
Which part, Susan? Me dancing
Yeah.
and acting like a lunatic, or I'm sure there are videos somewhere because people saw me everywhere. People took pictures of me. I have pictures of me in the costume. I can send them to you. You will die laughing. I'm sure there's one on Instagram already. I know there's some on Facebook floating around. Um,
Yep. I tell you. And yes, folks, he thinks long and hard. I'm sure he's already got the next one rolling in his brain for next year.
I'm working on it.
See.
I plan these costumes well in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there
Yes.
was a pink tutu,
There was a pink tutu.
full full on pink tutu. Even when I was sitting there doing card readings for people, you know, they're they're bawling their eyes out because I hit a spot that they did not expect me to find, and I'm like, you chose the wrong cards if you want a fun reading. Um, and here I am sitting here in this full on wig on, making my hair look crazy. The button up shirt, the pink tutu, the boxers. I had compression socks that came up to almost my knee. It was a sight, and here I am making people cry at the table doing card readings.
Oh,
It was.
only you. Only you.
I don't know how they took me seriously. I really don't, because I couldn't take myself seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, so with that, y'all, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for hanging out with us and listening to this rainbow on about serial killers and horror movies and doting on about how much we like them. Like I said, we will get to movies that we despise. I
Yes.
just haven't got there yet because I'm trying to find movies that are original and highly thought out and just, very well scripted, shot, all of that to take and bring the point of view that yes, these directors and writers are probably psychotic as well.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Well, there's got to be some level of dysfunction ish
Yeah,
somewhere.
I mean, yeah, because Even when I
That's
got to meet the crew of Serial, movie Serial that was there this weekend,
mhm.
the director himself is a very large introvert. Like, he was highly uncomfortable, but he still hung out. He mainly stuck to his people, but we would have a conversation. We talked about the movie. We talked about our personal influences and likes and this and that and stuff, and it was such a good time. Um, Very cool guy. The whole crew was the dude that plays Carl in it. They have a web series, by the way, on YouTube. I'm giving a shameless plug because why not?
Why not?
It's called, if you type in serial web series, it'll pop up. It's literally about two serial killers, and the actors actually do a phenomenal job at their role. So, uh, and thank you everyone that showed up to Scarefest and made it an even more awesome time. Even with my, sleep deprived ass sitting there falling passing out at different times randomly, for cat naps while on the floor. It wasn't as bad as last year, I promise. Last year I was dressed up as Ronald McDonald, just completely slept, mouth open, just gone. Um, because at that point I was sick. I'm pretty sure I had a cold. I was
Yeah.
sick. I was exhausted from the weekend, but it was such a fun weekend. I got to see everyone. I got to hang out with everyone as much as I could while working. And this year they gave me a media pass, which was just a terrible idea to give me a media pass.
Yeah, because it
Anyone
could
that's watched the
have
videos
got
and stuff, because I tried to share as much straight to my profile as possible so people could watch. It was literally me running through the building, like almost full sprint throughout the building, just talking my head off. Because once again, it was one of those, I won't keep talking. If I stop, I won't pass out where I stand. So,
exactly.
uh, we are going to go hop over to check out Short Jesus, Mr. Keith
Yes.
Ottersberg on Otter's Den. We all hope you have a great night. Hope you join us next week. And
Thank
as
you all.
always, it's Renee. Thank you for joining me.
Always pleasure
And
is
of,
mine.
and of course, this is Death Scenes and Cemeteries.